Hey everybody, Lewis here. Welcome back to the channel where we talk about finance, real estate, and investing. In today's video, we're going to try to answer the question, why are businesses and people leaving California? We're going to take a look at why they're leaving, where they're headed, and how it may impact California homeowners and investors. Let's get into it. So we're going to start with an article that I found on CNBC, link below, titled Why Some Tech Companies and Billionaires Are Leaving California. And I'm just going to go over some of the key points here. So what this article is basically saying is that some of the state's major companies and wealthiest people are leaving, and they're headed to states like Texas, Arizona, and Florida. According to this article, in 2020, large employers, namely Oracle, Palantir, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, were among some of the companies that announced they're going to be relocating their headquarters. And some of the wealthy individuals that are leaving are people that are really well known, like Larry Ellison, Drew Houston, and Elon Musk. So the question is, why are these people leaving? And, aside from companies and businesses leaving and some of these really wealthy residents, what does the migration patterns look like here in California? So this article goes on to say that California's population and job growth have both slowed to a trickle, and many are citing concerns over high taxes, cost of living, and heavy regulation. And with the rise of remote work, it says that over 135,000 people left California. And that's the third largest net migration ever recorded for the state. Although some big companies have committed to stay, one recent survey found that 2 out of every 3 Bay Area workers, that's over 66%, would actually leave the area permanently if they could continue to work from home indefinitely. And companies like Dropbox, Twitter, and Facebook are among some of the Bay Area companies that have already offered permanent work from home solutions to employees. With that being said, let's jump into the migration trends and see if we can get some insight as to where the population is headed. Okay, so I have a really interesting article up on the screen from Uhaul. And for those of you who don't know, Uhaul is a moving company. They rent trucks, they rent trailers, and they help people move from point A to point B. And they actually provide a tremendous amount of data surrounding those migration trends. So up on the screen, we have 2020 migration trends. Uhaul ranks 50 states by migration growth. And this provides some really interesting insight as to what states are growing in population and what states are declining. I'm going to point out some of the key points here, but it says that Texas and Florida are their top 2 destinations and have been since 2016. Texas had the largest net gain of one-way U-Haul trucks for 3 consecutive years before Florida flipped the order and became number 1 last year. Texas is second for growth and Florida is third for 2020. Now, Ohio, Arizona, Colorado, Missouri, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia, they round out the top 10 for growth in 2020 as self-movers continue to migrate to the Southeast, as well as markets in the Southwest, Midwest, and Rocky Mountain regions. So the article now goes on to say that California actually ranks last by a wide margin with regard to growth. And it says that California has ranked 48th or lower since 2016. Now, if you scroll down, you can actually see this really handy chart, and I'm going to link to this in the show notes below, but it actually lists every single state by their migration growth. And so you can see the top 10 here, which I think is super interesting. I mean, if you're a homeowner or you're a real estate investor, and you believe that the trend is your friend and you want to invest in areas where the population is growing, where job growth is strong, then something like this makes a lot of sense to pay attention to. It's a very unique and high quality data point. It says that states like Tennessee, Texas, Florida, Ohio, Arizona, Colorado, Missouri, Nevada, North Carolina, and Georgia are seeing people fleeing to those states. And then if you continue to scroll down, you can see the ones that kind of make the bottom 10. So California is unfortunately coming in last with regards to population growth. And so if we're on the topic of California real estate, we want to see what areas they're leaving and what areas they're headed to. We know that 135,000 people left, and that was the net migration out in 2020. But did any folks decide to stay in the state? And if so, where did they go? The article here says that San Francisco was only a slight growth city in 2019, with more U-Haul trucks entering the city than leaving it. But in 2020, San Francisco was actually the epicenter of the Bay Area's exodus. the departures accounted for 58% of all one-way U-Haul traffic from March through June of 2020. There was a limited fleet inventory, which actually prevented the numbers from being more lopsided in favor of these departures. So it's fair to say that people are leaving the Bay Area. The question is where are they headed? We know that some are moving out of state, but are some staying locally? And if so, where are they going? Which cities are the most popular? They are saying here that despite California's out-migration numbers, that it ranked last among all growth states, the markets of Sacramento, Roseville, and Redding made the growth cities list as popular destinations for movers aiming to stay inside of the state. And if you scroll down, it shows us the chart, and you can see right here at the bottom that Sacramento, Roseville made it as the number 11 spot for top growing U.S. cities. Okay, so now that we've established why some of these businesses and why people are leaving the state of California, and we understand where they're headed, both out of the state and certain areas within the state, we want to look at how this will impact California homeowners and investors. So let's take a look real quick and summarize what we know. We know that 135,000 people have left the state. We know that the people who choose to stay within California are leaving areas that are densely populated urban environments like San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose, and they're headed to areas like Sacramento, Roseville, and Redding. And if we dig into why that might be, I would venture to guess that it's for a few different reasons. One, it's a flight to affordability. The San Francisco market is very expensive, whereas people who live in San Francisco may look at the Sacramento, Roseville, Redding area as being affordable. In addition to that, we know that businesses, large employers in the Bay Area like Oracle, Hewlett-Packard, they're choosing to leave the state and they're allowing people to work from home. And companies like Facebook and Twitter and Dropbox, they're doing the exact same thing. So people are fleeing to the suburban and rural areas, not only to get cheaper living, but a better quality of life. They're looking for areas that might make it easier to social distance and deal with some of the lockdowns that we've had to deal with in California. It's ultimately putting upward pressure on prices in those areas because we still have really low interest rates and we have a low level of inventory. So if you believe in the old saying that real estate is all about location, 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 then you'll see here that some of the trends can really be your friend. And you want to get in front of those trends if you're an investor. That's not to say that all real estate in those areas, like Sacramento and Roseville makes sense, but it is a data point to pay attention to. And if we know that we have more people coming into that city than leaving, then we know that there's going to be a continued demand for the foreseeable future, at least until more inventory and housing stock comes online. So what can you do? Well, if you're a homeowner, odds are let's say you've owned the property for a couple years and maybe you got into that property with a lower down payment initially. Well, right now might be a really good time to take a look at refinancing. Now, if you're an investor, a lot of times investors are looking for yield, they're looking for cash flow. So it's really more a matter of getting a property in a good area, in a good school district that will be in high demand, and then buying something where it cash flows from day one. And that could be by negotiating a good price and finding a motivated seller, or it could be by putting more money down. Additionally, I'd like to point out that we do have a net migration out as a whole in California, which might be bearish long-term for real estate prices here. So if you have the means and you have the wherewithal, you could even consider investing in markets outside of California. Areas like Idaho or Texas or Arizona or Nevada might be interesting places to look at just based on the migration patterns we've seen in some of these data points that we've analyzed. All right, so that is going to wrap it up for this video. If you enjoyed the content, feel free to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.